Today we're going to talk about characters and how we import and bring in characters and deal with some animations. We're also going to work on our audio and being able to have characters that will interact and speak. And then in doing that, we're going to have to get into a little bit of scripting. And so we're going to do a little bit of scripting to kind of set the stage for where we're going to go in the future, where we have different events and colliders and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a basic scene. It has a terrain and it has a first-person camera, the same one we've been using in the previous tutorials. So the first thing I want to do is find a character. Now you can go to the asset store and search for characters. And there are lots of them there. They can range from free up to hundreds of dollars, but it's kind of up to you for what you want to do. There are some free ones, but that's easy. You know how to implement characters, and you're going to implement assets from the asset store. So right now, what we're going to do is look at some other places that we can get different characters. So Adobe has a site called Mixamo. They purchased it recently. And so you'll need to log in with your Adobe ID. And so log in with an Adobe ID. And then you can come in here and select different characters. And so I searched space, and then I got this character here, and I'm going to say, yes, I want to use this character. And you see a little preview of her. And then I can click over to animations. And now I can find lots of different animations to do this. So if you were making a zombie thing, there's zombie moves. But what we want is idle. So we're going to look for idle poses where people are just kind of standing around. So they use the red for female mostly and the blue for male, but sometimes they can be interchangeable depending on what the action is. So if you had a fighter, you could do that here. This is just a very basic, simple animation. I'm going to choose an idle that's not so small movements. It's going to have a little bit larger movement. So I'm going to select this one right here so that it's easier for you to see. But typically you'd want something very subtle, but this one's not, just to make it easier on us. So I click on it and you can see they're looking around and moving. And so you could play with this and learn kind of how these controls do it. For right now, we're just going to keep this as is. I'm going to go ahead and click on download. At download, you want to make sure that you have FBX for Unity, because we're going into Unity, but FBX is a standard file type for moving and sharing 3D assets. And then we want to make sure that we're doing it with the skin because we want the whole character. And we are working at 30 frames per second. And so just go ahead and click download. So what this does is it packages the rigged model. It packages the animations and all the textures that we would need for this character to look this way in Unity. So I'm going to show it in Finder, and you'll see I have it in my downloads page. And so if I click and drag that FBX to Unity into my project folder, you will see it there. I'm going to go back to my scene, and I'm going to double click on my first person so I get close to my camera. And then if you look at this character, you're going to see several things. One of which is when I clicked on it here in the preview, you see it doesn't have any texture. So there's a few things we need to do to get this ready. So first thing I'm going to do is click on the rig, and I will turn the rig from generic to humanoid. And humanoid is a specific set of bones, and it's set up for being able to create animations that are consistent. And you can move multiple animations over multiple models as long as they're all humanoid models. If we were dealing with animals or things, those would probably be considered generic, and they'd be a custom rig. But in this case, we're going to use humanoid, and you're going to hit apply. And what we want to make sure happens with any of the models you get, that you get a little checkbox, right, or a little check right here. So if you imported it from some source and it doesn't have the checkbox, then you might want to go find a different model because it's probably not going to want to be worth your effort to fix. You could go in and configure it, but I'm not very experienced in that, and I think it's a lot of work. So for what we're doing for this class, just go ahead and find a model that checks out. Under animations, we're going to leave this for right now. We'll come back and deal with our animations in a moment. But we're first going to go here back to materials. And the materials are going to help us to get the texture materials that we need. So the first thing we need to do is extract them out of the FBX and save them into our project. So I'm going to click Extract Textures. And then I would create a new folder. I've already created mine here called Textures, and I click on that and then hit Choose. And so that's where those textures are going to be. And sometimes it will pop up that something didn't fit or wasn't proper. Do you want to fix it? And we always want to say yes to that if it comes up. Okay, mine did as well. So we have a normal map texture here, and I'm just going to hit Fix Now. All right. Now I need to do this again, but for the material. So extract materials, create a folder called materials. I already have one here, and I'm going to click Choose. And then now I have my folder. So now when we look at our model in the preview, we're starting to see it come together. And if I were to drag that out, drag that into our scene, we'll see it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna come back here to my project, and I'm gonna drag this to my scene and place them right on the terrain. And looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and lower our camera a little bit. And then I'm going to hit play. And you can see we have the thing. Now I'm on a hill. The way my camera was set was on a hill, so it's over there. But if I walk closer, I'm really high. But you'll see she's not moving, okay? There's no action happening there. And that flickering is just because of the screen recording. So one of the things we need to do is give her some animations. Now, we downloaded an idle animation, but it did not include a controller. So whenever we've clicked on our character, you'll see over here under animator, there is expecting a controller. So first thing we need to do is to actually create a controller. Now, these are things you can download. So if you have a really complicated scripts, like you're doing a third-person player where you're moving around, you can download those controllers. For what we're going to do for the idle, it's easy to make one. So we're going to go to Game Object, and we want to, sorry, it's under Create. So Assets, Create, Animation Controller. So not under Game Object. Assets, Create, Animation Controller, and it creates one here, and I'm going to call this Space Idle. Now notice I did camel case because we're going to start using some scripts, and it'll be easier to deal that way if we wanted to script that later. But for what we're doing for now, it's fine, however you want to do it. So this is our Space Idle. I'm going to double click on it, and you'll see I have entry is when the action is supposed to start. Either it starts on a script or it starts when the thing loads, but whenever it does, it's basically the entry point. And then I need an animation for that. So our FBX that we downloaded included that. So I'm going to open that, and you'll see we have several things here. You have the different textures and things, but also included here is the idle animation. So if I click on it and hit play, you'll see just that kind of movement that's going on there. So what I'm going to do is just drag idle into my controller. Okay, so whenever this starts, it goes into the idle animations. Now, if you had multiple animations, you could actually add them so that one connects to the next, and you can build a sequence of animations. So go back to our scene. And this time, I'm going to click on my character, come over here to my inspector, and under controller, I'm going to click the little circle there, and I'm going to select my Space Idle. Double click. And then now when I look at test it, she's moving around. Okay. So that is a basic kind of animation experience to be able to add that to a character. Now you can go and find multiple animations and multiple different animation controllers to add to your character. So now we have a character that has some animations, but we may want to actually create some events, or maybe the character interacts or talks with someone. And so what we need to do is to create a collider. And then on that collider, on that character, we're going to have some scripts, and the scripts are going to actually play some audio files. So I have 2 audio files. I have a hello and a goodbye, and we'll start with the hello and add that to our character. So I have my character. I need to import my audio, and so I have a hello and a bye-bye, and I'm going to just drag those to my project folder. Now they're not going to see them because I had them selected, but I have hello and bye. So if you just have a single sound, it's fairly easy to go ahead and click on one and then hit add component, new audio source, and then select the hello. Double click on that and it plays here. And this time I want to uncheck the play on wake, because what we're going to do is we're going to have it so that when the first person player approaches the character is going to just play this audio clip and say hello. So we don't want it to loop and we don't want it to play on here. So you can leave all this the same for right now. Now we also need to add a collider. So I've clicked on my character and I want to make sure we have a collider on here. So if I look through here, some characters come with them, some of them don't. In this case, we don't have that. So what we need to do is add component, and we're going to type in collider, and we do a capsule collider. So boxes are typically for shapes and things that are like you want to create barriers or more straight lined objects. People kind of fit better for the capsule collider. So it's a 3-dimensional space that we have, and you'll see here. And we're gonna set this to is trigger. And actually I'm gonna leave it not as trigger so you can see what it looks like. But first I'm gonna set the radius to 2 meters. And you'll see how the green line got larger. So 1 meter is smaller. I'm gonna set this to 2 meters so that when I'm within 2 meters, she's going to greet us. Now right now I'm leaving this unchecked just so you can see what happens when we approach. So I'm going to walk forward. Sorry, I was dealing with some gravity stuff earlier. And I can't go to her ahead, and I can't go any closer. And that's actually because the collider is working. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and stop my share, or stop my play, and go back and check that as a is trigger. So this case, it won't create this shield around her. It'll just kick off an event anytime we pass that, right? So what we're going to do is we've got an audio source called hello, and then we need to create a new script. So to create a new script, we can add here, add a component, new script, and then you would give it a script name, and we'll call this greetings. And I like putting COL at the end so I know that it is a collider. And so now when we double click on this particular script, it's going to open it in Visual Studio. And this is something that we installed before. If you don't have it installed, no worries. You can go ahead and pause the video and install Visual Studio, but you need some editor to be able to edit your file. So this file has some things that if you're not a computer programmer, you're not used to looking at. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know to be able to do this well. So the first thing is we have kind of defining and importing of some important class stuff. You're just going to leave all this the same. But when you're looking at documentation, it may say to add an include here. And this is something that we would need to add other lines here. But for what we're doing now, just leave that. Then everything you'll do in Unity most of the time will come in a class. And this means public class. Public is how we define our variables. So you can just leave all that the same. And you'll notice that the name of the class is the same as the name of the file. That has to be the case, and they don't need to change. So make sure you keep those consistent. Then you have these different options of things that happen. So whenever something starts, so in this case, which is on load when it happens, that's the starting moment, and so we'll kick off things. Then we can add other events, but there's also an update event, which is also called, as you can see here in the comments, once per frame. So if you want to put something inside the start, you're going to put it right here in between the two curly brackets. And if you wanted something to happen every frame, you would put it right there. Okay. So in our case, we're going to do a couple of things. Okay. So I've already written this script, and so I'm going to walk through it one piece at a time so that you can see what I'm doing. The best way to do this was to actually go to some documentation on the Unity website, which is where I got this. And so I can come in here and I'm going to add this line. And what it's basically saying is get the component of finding what the audio source is. And so, so that line came right from the documentation, as did much of what I'm going to show you. And then when it loads, we want to have a few things, such as we need to define some variables. We want to define the audio source and have a source variable. We're going to have a hello variable because the person's going to say hello, and a bye-bye variable. You could call these three things anything you wanted. You could call them audio files, and you could call it clip 1, clip 2, clip 3, but I like to give them a name that makes a little more sense. So I have my variables. I've just defined those. So this is for 2 different clips. If you had 3 or 4 clips, you would put those here. And then under start, we need to define what happens the moment that this item loads. So the first thing it's going to do is look for any audio sources that are tied to this clip. And then it's going to define and create hello as the first one and bye-bye as the second one. So if you're a computer programmer, you would know that this is an object and this is the first item in the object. This is the second item. In computer programming, we always start counting with 0. So the first item starts with 0. The second one is a 1. Okay. So we have 2 items. If we had 3, the next one would just be audio sources bracket 2. Okay. And so we're going to leave those just like that. And that's just defining and getting our stuff ready. Then we want to have a trigger event. So we don't have this written into our script right now. We had a start event. And so go after that curly bracket. And we're going to add a trigger event. So this is basically on trigger. There's going to be something with the collider. What I want you to do, I want you to take the source file, and there's a function called play one shot. It's like a one-time play of the file. And then it has these parameters it wants to know. So what do I play? Hello, and then at what volume? Okay, so this is 0 to 1. It's a floating, the F stands for floating. And so you can set this to 1, or you could set it to 0.5 for half or whatever. So I just put that in there so you could have an example of that. Okay, so if we do everything right, we should be able to have the hello audio clip play whenever we walk within that circle of the collider. Now we got one more thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have an audio source here. So if I've already have my audio source added, but if you didn't, you click add component and then audio source and then select the circle and put hello. And I'm going to do hello, and then I'm also going to go ahead and do bye-bye, just so I'll go ahead and have them, although it won't do bye-bye yet. And I'm going to unclick that. And then remember, save everything. And then when you're saving your files, if I screw something up, like for example, let me take this off. Okay, so bad syntax, I screwed something up. It actually tells me that here, but also sometimes you'll notice it over here in the console. So it's telling me, here's a warning on the greetings collider script in line 27, section 40, there was a semicolon that was expected. Oh, sorry. So come back here, line 27, end of the line, up, I needed a semicolon. And then now you'll see it's no longer underlined red. If I save that, when I click back to here, you should see it disappears. Okay, so let's do a quick test. I want to pull my camera a little farther away, just so we're not inside that collider, just to make sure. And Let's play. So as we walk closer, so she said bye-bye. Okay. Now she doesn't say anything when I go away, but as I come up, she keeps doing it every time. So now we're going to go ahead and set the bye-bye function. So if we look back at our script, you see we had an onTrigger enter. What do you think the function would be for the next one? It's going to be an onTrigger exit. So I'm going to copy this one from mine. And you'll see onTrigger exit, source, play one shot. The file it's going to play is bye-bye at a level of 0.7 or 70%. Okay. Now I forgot to tell you that I left this debug section in here. This is just information you can pass to yourself. So if you're trying to debug or understand was my trigger event firing or not, and you can see that in the game player, this is the way you can do that. So you just put it in quotes, whatever you want it to say, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to save that. Come back over here. It'll import. It takes it a second. And so now I'm going to hit play. And so let's see. Well, that's not right, is it? It says hello when I walk away and bye-bye. So what happened? Let me show you exactly what's happening. So if we look at our code, you will see hello is item 0, or the first item, and bye-bye is the second item. Okay, so let's look over here. We have, click on my character. Let's get the top level of the character, sorry. And you'll see the first one is bye-bye, and the second one is hello. And so you can sometimes move these around, but sometimes it doesn't seem to like me when I do that. So I'm going to just go ahead and switch the audio files. Okay. So the first one's hello. The second one is bye-bye. And then now, when we test this again, whoops. You know what? When you are previewing, you can't actually make changes in the scene. So I had left that playing. So let's do that again. First one should be hello. Second one should be bye-bye. And now let's save. I'm going to check it. Hello, bye-bye, second. And now we play it. And let's try again. There we go. She says hello. And then if I back away, I'm stuck in the collider. So, all right, so you get the idea. So we have created a script that fires an event whenever we enter the collider or exit the collider. Now there's a lot of ways that you were going to be able to use this in the future. For right now, we're just doing some audio clips, but that's a pretty easy way. One other thing that I noticed in your audio, a lot of you wanted to deal with footsteps. And so the way we would do footsteps is you can click on your first person player. And this, this component is actually really nice because it includes an easy way of doing this and having multiple types of footsteps depending on what type of surface you're on. So what we can do here is you can see dirt and gravel. In this case, I'm going to see here where it says select the material. There are several that were imported when we imported this thing. So I select gravel and then a particular clip that I want it to do. So if I had selected grass, I would select grass. There's actually not really a gravel one, but there's one that's close enough. It's concrete, it's kind of hard. And so anytime that it's on a surface that has this particular type of material, then it will always use these footsteps. So then I need to go click on my terrain and then make sure that my material is set to gravel. So now when we play it, you hear the footsteps